With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today. With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today. With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Adam Hill here in the Fan Zone. Thank you guys for coming in and come out here every single Tuesday. Get your questions answered about the Raiders. You can submit them throughout the week through our Twitter, either me or Vinny Bonsignor, anybody that covers the Raiders, Ed Graney, all of us, and check out the questions. But also here through the Fan Zone, and we'll get into answering some of the questions you guys have about the Raiders. We actually just got off a call with Greg Olson, offensive coordinator, and Derek Carr, the quarterback. So have some information from there as well. I think it'll inform some of these
questions. With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural
questions, and we'll get into them right now. And actually, our first two questions come from Mark Davis. I think it's not that Mark Davis, but it is Mark Davis that had some questions for us. So first one, pictures of the practice facility look pretty impressive. Weight room, swimming pool, indoor fields. What's your impression of the facility? Have you been there, and can you compare it to what they had in Alameda? So have not been there. Have not been able to get in there yet. Certainly been around it. It's right by my house, so I check it out quite often. But you can't go in there right now. A lot of safety protocols are in place, of course, for the coronavirus pandemic and everything that's going on around there. So really not allowing a whole lot of people in there. Behind the scenes a little bit, we will have testing on Friday and Monday, and then going in there to the facility next week to check things out. However, very confident in telling you, much, much better than what they had in Alameda. That was not the greatest facility in the NFL by any stretch. It was, something that they had, and they, appreciated. It was right by the airport, which is very important to them. But really, in terms of the actual facility, the weight room was fine. The fields were okay, but no indoor bubble to practice in, and certainly not a lot of the amenities that they have at the facility now, which is, just by the photos alone, I think you guys have mostly seen it, just the top of the line in terms of facilities around the NFL. So they're very excited to get in there. I know one of the things that they talked about this offseason was wanting to get the guys in. Like, you didn't have the OTAs, you didn't have the minicamp. Mike Mayock and John Gruden said, hey, when these guys come in here, they're going to be so blown away and so impressed by what's going on. They're just going to want to explore. They want to check things out, and you want to get rid of that awe factor. So they wanted to get guys in there just to see it before they were able to come for training camp, but they really weren't able to do that. So I think, the facility is state of the art, top of the line, no question about it. They're very excited to be there. We're excited to be there. I know none of you care, but the media room at Alameda was a joke. It was hilarious, really. And here we hear it's a much, much better spot, which is it's good for the coaches. They got to be in there and talk to us. So just better all around here in Henderson. And the second question from Mark Davis. I got my letter from myself yesterday. That is, I think, a joke about his name. Very good. No fans in the stands, but what about the parking lots? Can fans come out to the stadium and socially distance for some massive tailgate parties? A big part of game day are the tailgate parties and the socializing with friends reunited from across Raider Nation. Very good point. Mark Davis has talked a little bit about this. The other one, not you, the owner, has talked a little bit about this. He wants to put these sorts of things in. He wants these things to happen. They want to figure out ways to do this. But the problem is, you say socially distance. It's tough to. If you have a tailgate party, it's tough to do that. There's going to be people that are going to kind of crowd around, and I guess what's the point of having no fans in the stands and trying to be safe, and then jamming everybody into the parking lot? So if they do something, I think it will be socially distanced, and they will try to figure out ways to have places where you can watch. I know, like the Downtown Event Center is a place that they've had viewing parties in the past. I think they're going to figure out ways to make a fan experience, even though there's no fans in the stadium. But I think one of the really interesting things Mark Davis said yesterday was that he was looking at doing some sort of viewing parties with smaller groups, maybe 25 people or so, where people would pay money to watch the game with him in some environment, some sort of party setup, and check out the games with him for charity, which I think would be very cool. It'd be a very good way not only to continue to connect with the community, but also raise money for charity and give some people access to him and him watching the game. He actually said some people might learn some new words watching the game with him, which indicates he gets very into it and very passionate, which is not surprising. But yeah, that's something that I think you could look for, and I think part of that, the charity initiatives and things that he's doing is because when I talked to him a couple weeks ago about this, and he first said he doesn't think there's going to be fans there. He said one of the very disappointing aspects of that was he was so looking forward to that bond between the community and the team, and he was proud that a lot of the players from the team had already come into town, had already been involved in the community, had already taken on some of their own charity initiatives, and he thought that they were doing a good job of blending into the new community and making their presence felt. But he was just very disappointed they weren't going to be able to do that on Sundays. But this would be a way to continue to build that bridge with the community and, really, really bond with people if they're able to do some viewing parties like that. So I would expect something to happen in that regard. Gilberto asks, he is a longtime participant here and somebody to check out on Twitter as well. Gilberto Carrar said, Adam, I'm sure you're going to hear lots of different opinions, but I'm glad Mr. Davis opted for no fans. Why risk your family's health? And what if they did a system where you only go to 4, 3, or 2 games? Not worth the aggravation of not going to the game that you wanted. I think this was a huge factor in what the Raiders decided to do. Obviously, we knew Mark Davis from the beginning said all fans or no fans. If there wasn't 65,000, if it was some sort of reduced capacity, then he would say no fans at all and just wait until next year where you can fill up the stadium every week. So I think that was part of it. He didn't want to have people that had participated in buying PSLs, buying season tickets, investing in this team's move to Las Vegas, and then not having them be able to go to every game. That was part of it. And also the decision process. How do you decide who goes to what game? Do you tell people that paid $30,000 for a PSL, sorry, you can't go to this game because the people that paid $75,000 get to go? That's what some of the other stadiums are doing. The higher you pay for your PSL, the more priority you have from week in and week out. So it was going to be a very difficult decision, and I think that was part of it. Obviously, safety is a major factor, but I think just the problem of telling people that are so invested in this team and were so instrumental in bringing the team here that they can't go to certain games was going to be tough. And listen, I know I got some feedback from some people who said, hey, I don't care. I just like the Raiders. I want to go see the Raiders, and I don't care who they're playing. I just want to go to any game. Give me 2 games. If it's 25%, every fan that had tickets for the season gets 2 games, and we move on. Well, you can say that, but then when you get the Dolphins game and whatever other game you want to say, you get the Dolphins and Broncos, which Broncos is a premier game, a rivalry game, but say that's the 2 games you get, and you're like, wait a minute, I paid this much money, and you're going to shut me out of the Saints game, the opener that everybody wants to be at, the Buccaneers game that everybody wants to go to, the Chiefs game that's going to be so massive. Even I know it's not a marquee team, but so much buzz about the Bills coming to town, and the fans that want to come to travel here, and a lot of people want to see that game. So it's it was going to be very difficult to make that decision. And as much as people say I didn't care, I just wanted to go to a game, I think that you would have had a lot of people complaining when you only got 2 games and they weren't any of the marquee ones on the schedule. So I think that certainly weighed into it. In addition to all the safety protocols, of course, and I think when you look at where we're at right now in the state of Nevada, we're still trying to battle through some bad numbers and some scary situations. And right now, pro sports is allowed in Nevada only with no fans. So the government regulation was already there. Yes, it could change by the time the season starts, and it could certainly change at some point in the season. But right now, there is a regulation in the state that there's no fans anyway. So it was going to be tough to deal with that as well. Buzz is around on Twitter asks, Raiders, NFL or CFL caliber? That's just silly. I get it. You're trying to be derisive there, I guess. But yeah, this is an NFL team, of course. Where they are in the NFL, that is certainly a big question. That's something that's going to have to be worked out during the season. You go in and look at where the division is, and we'll get into a little bit with the Chiefs on some of these questions coming up. But yeah, they're not right now one of the elite teams. They're not looking at that's sitting at the top of the odds board of who's going to win the Super Bowl this year. But that's a silly silly shot to call them CFL caliber. Although there's some good teams in the CFL. You might want to check that out and see that. Kevin Bitter on Twitter, another friend of this operation that we have here in Vegas Nation. Assuming a 16-game season with no schedule adjustments, does anyone roll the dice on AB for the second half of the season? Of course, AB being Antonio Brown, who was a very short-time Raider in training camp last year before he was released prior to the start of the season, played 1 week in New England before some accusations came out and he was released. Actually looked pretty good in that game. So will somebody take a shot? And the reason he says second half of the season is because he has suspended the first 8 games of the season. He can serve those whether he's on a roster or not. So, 9th game of the season, essentially, he would be eligible to come back and play this year. I think somebody does take a shot. Especially in this very, very weird season that we have. No OTAs, no offseason, all that we understand. But also during the season, I think you're going to run into teams having some situations with the virus where, you might find out on Saturday that you have 3 receivers that tested positive and they can't play. What do you do? Those kind of things could come up. You might have teams that are shorthanded that need to bring him in. But even more so than that, he's still an elite player. Last year, going into the season on the NFL Top 100, where the players vote, which I have a lot of problems with, which we could address at some point, I suppose. But on that list, he was number 7. The players voted him as the 7th best player in the entire league, and with good reason. His talent level is insane. Now, there's problems that come with him. We know that. That's why he has not been on a roster. That's why, after he left Pittsburgh, it was the Raiders for a few weeks, and then the Patriots for a week, and then nobody signed him for a full year. There's issues there. But as the year wears on, you have some clarity now. It's 8 games. And, I think teams might look at it and say, for the second half of the year, can we put up with whatever he brings in exchange for having one of the best weapons in all of football? Yeah, I think so. And, the Bucs don't need a receiver. They're loaded at wide receiver, but we know Tom Brady has been very vocal about wanting to play with Antonio Brown again. So if they had a couple guys go down, would it be them? Maybe. And then the other aspect of this year being weird is that some teams just got some cap space back. Teams that had players opt out, which several teams had a bunch of players opt out, those teams are going to receive that money back in terms of having some space under the cap. So guys like Jadeveon Clowney, who there was some market for, even some speculation about the Raiders. Some teams didn't really have the money to maybe look at him and sign him. Now all of a sudden there's some more money in the pool. There's some more room under the cap that some teams have. So I don't think Antonio Brown's going to get a massive deal, but if there was any cap considerations for any teams, those could be wiped out by some of the players opting out. Not all the teams will use that cap space, by the way. First of all, there's not that many players out there to sign. And the second part of that is that next year's cap is going to be very, very challenging. I think, in all this excitement about finally having football and finally having sports back and teams reporting to training camp, one of the things that's been overlooked, it's been discussed, but maybe not enough, is that next year's cap is going to be greatly reduced. It's going to be significantly impacted by the lack of revenue this season in a lot of areas, including Vegas with no fans there. So the revenues will be down. We expect the cap to take a pretty significant hit, maybe the around 175 next year, which we're up in the 200s right now. So teams are going to have to be very cautious about their spending next year. They're going to have to release some players. Talking to some agents this week, they expected it's going to be a lot of those mid-level guys. Like, you're going to keep your superstars, and you're going to try to find a bunch of rookies and free agent, undrafted free agents, guys like that to put on your roster. But guys that make $4 or $5 million, those that mid-tier, the middle class of the NFL, they're going to be in a lot of trouble next year in terms of teams kind of looking to play with superstars and rookies and guys on minimum contracts. That's what they're going to be looking at in a lot of cases because the cap is going to go so far down. So not every team will use that cap space to bring in a guy like Antonio Brown or Jadeveon Clowney, a couple other free agents that are out there. But that's something to certainly monitor. A couple more questions here, and thank you guys for all of these questions this week. First in Pen, love the name, on Twitter asks, how are the Raiders going to spin losing 2 games a year to the Chiefs for the next 10 years? Obviously, that is a reference to Pat Mahomes and his massive contract. He'll be in Kansas City probably for the rest of his career. 10-year deal that starts, next season, making a ton of money. Well, I like the snarky, sarcastic guy. Good question. But I think one of the things you have to watch for is, what does this do to the Chiefs roster? How can they build around Pat Mahomes when you've got a guy making that much money? And they got very complex with that contract, with the Mahomes contract. We could probably do 6 hours on it with some real, capologists and people that are really nuanced in the cap. But basically, it's not a contract that I see going all the way through. I think they'll renegotiate it, they'll rework it. They also have a lot of movable money in that contract where they can move bonuses, roster bonuses, signing bonuses, things like that to different years to help create some flexibility. So it's not as overwhelming as a contract as you might think, but it is still a massive cap hit every year for a team to have a guy like that. I've made the argument that the Jared Goff deal basically closed the window on the Rams. Once they signed Jared Goff to that contract, the Rams were pretty much done. And I think it's going to be the case for a while as long as he's got that deal there. I don't necessarily think it's the same with the Chiefs because Pat Mahomes is a different level player, but you're going to have to be creative in who you build around. You're going to have hope guys take discounts to play with him to try to win titles. It's not going to be this loaded team this whole time that Pat Mahomes is there. So I think they're going to have some cap challenges. It's going to open the door, and the Raiders are building, to compete with them. They understand what the Chiefs have and what the Chiefs have done, and they want to continue to build on their secondary. You saw how much they invested in young players in the secondary, young talented players, try to keep up with the Chiefs. They're trying to build that pass rush because the way to stop Mahomes is to get to him and put pressure on him, and that's the case with any quarterback, and Mahomes is obviously great enough to overcome that, but that's what you're trying to do. And then on the offensive side, it's speed for the Raiders. That's what they've been doing. That's why Henry Ruggs was the selection. They want to build the kind of team that can be explosive on offense and score enough points, but also on defense find ways to slow Mahomes down. So, they're going to be big underdogs against the Chiefs both games this year, probably both games next year, probably for as long as Mahomes is there. But there is some openings that the Raiders could try to build, and the Raiders are a very young team, and they're building toward that. So we'll see, especially at those key positions: defensive back, wide receiver, running back, the skill positions on both sides. They're building toward trying to compete with the Chiefs for the long term. Chris on Twitter asks, with Gruden admitting how horribly we stunk in the red zone, Didn't know you were on the team. No, I'm just kidding with you, Chris. How horribly the Raiders stunk in the red zone, especially the 1 and 2 yard line last year. Can you see us throwing in Mariota or Bowden for those situations this season? Short answer, yes. I can see a lot of things happening with the team trying to be creative inside the red zone, especially inside that 2 yard line, as you referenced. One bit of, I guess, breaking news, although it's not huge breaking news. I think a lot of people maybe suspected this, but Greg Olsen today, the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, on a conference call with us just about less than an hour ago, said that Lynn Bowden has been working at running back. That's the position he's been playing, but he is also working with the quarterbacks. He is learning the position. He's learning the plays. He's learning what they want to do with their quarterbacks. I think it's a very sure sign that they're going to get him involved in some packages, especially in the red zone, especially in short yardage, but maybe even all over the field. They're going to put the ball in his hand, and they like his explosion. They like his versatility, all the things that he can do as a player. So I'm very interested to see what kind of package they put in for Bowden. I do expect him to be a guy inside the 1-2 yard line that they go to, inside the red zone in general, that they'll use. Alec Ingold was phenomenal in short yardage last year, the fullback. It was almost automatic on 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, but you can't get predictable. You've got to have other options. You've got to have other places to go, and that's why you've got Bowden. You could use Mariota in those spots. There's Henry Ruggs is going to be sideline to sideline. One of the things that you do with speed is that everybody talks about taking the top off the defense and opening up the deep game, but it also enables you to play a little bit of sideline to sideline inside the 5 yard line, where you can kind of move around a little bit. You don't have to. The field shortens, obviously, so the defense doesn't have as much space to cover. But if you can make them cover you sideline to sideline, it opens up things for other players as well. So there's a lot there for the Raiders to take those next steps. They also want to be more creative with their play calling. John Gruden said he was bad as a play caller. Greg Olsen said they were horrific in those situations last year. So everybody knows the problem. They're trying to address it as much as they can. And there's another one. Jeremy Hill just signed the other day, which I think not a whole lot was made of it necessarily, and I don't know what how the backfield is going to play out with Devonta Booker being on the COVID list right now. When he comes back, they've got a lot of depth now all of a sudden of guys that have played in the NFL. But Jeremy Hill, say what you want about him, he's been out of the league for all of last year. He played only one game in 2018 before tearing his ACL. But in Cincinnati, he was a touchdown machine. And I think there was some drawbacks to him as well. There were some negatives, but he was a touchdown machine. Over a 3-year span, I think he went 9-11-9. That's off the top of my head. 29 touchdowns in 3 years with Cincinnati, which is a really impressive number and a pretty consistent guy inside the red zone. So he could be used as well, depending on where he is in terms of his shape, his health. We'll find that out as he comes in to camp when we can get out there. Last one on here for now from CJ James on Twitter. What happens to all the money fans have been paying for over a year for the different stages of buying a PSL and season tickets? Are they just... I'll clean that up. I guess it's easy curse, but or just a full refund for are they just out of luck, or do they get a full refund on that money? So I think these things are all still being worked out a little bit. We saw the letter from Mark Davis. We talked to him. We talked to the team a little bit about this. They're still trying to work it out. I mean, the season tickets will be pushed back to next year, obviously, for everybody. And the majority of the stadium was season tickets. 55,000 of the 65,000 seats are season tickets, and they're sold out for the whole year as well. So they I believe, offer refunds on the single game, and then season tickets will be pushed back a year. I think you can get a refund if you want, but most of those are attached to PSL, so I don't think people would necessarily want refunds. I think they would want to roll that over. The bigger questions to me are a couple of small details about the tickets, which are small in the grand scheme of things. They're not small to the people that have the tickets, for sure. One of them is you have PSLs for 30 years. I know that there are some questions of, does this mean you have them for 31 now? Because there's not a season now. I don't think that's the case. I think it's a 30-year contract. Regardless, we'll see how that plays out. Again, we're trying to get answers on that. But then the other one was, what about the promise that some PSL holders got that there'd be no raising of ticket prices for the first 3 years? That's a very, very intriguing question to me. I really want to find out the answer to that. We've been asking around a little bit. I think we'll get that. Again, I think this is so new. It was announced so quickly by Mark Davis that I don't think a lot of these things were necessarily worked out. But if you say that you're not going to raise tickets for 3 years, does this count as one of those years? I don't know. We'll find that out and try to get information for you guys. But that's a really fascinating thing, I think, to monitor in terms of the tickets. But it's just unfortunate. I think more than anything else, and I hope people understand that. I think it sucks that people invested so much and they can't go, but you get where he's coming from. And Mark Davis was very upset that there was no equity in terms of the NFL, where everything else was equity based. It was, hey, when the first facility closed down in March, everybody had to close down. When you couldn't have draft picks come into your facility and get physicals and work with your team, then nobody could, because one team was shut out of it. Then everybody is. Well, then all of a sudden now, in terms of who's allowed in the stands, it was, well, every team's for themselves. One team can have 20,000, one team can have 30,000, somebody can have 14,000, some teams will have 0. It's just based on your local government and your local guidance, which Mark Davis was not happy about that, and with good reason. Like it's a competitive disadvantage for certain teams, and as we said, in Nevada right now, there's 0 fans allowed, so it really wouldn't have mattered what the Raiders did, but that could change. And if that changes, how does that change what they do? And here's the other part of that. We mentioned earlier the cap implications, the lack of revenue, the loss of revenue this year, and the impact that will have on the salary cap next season. If I'm the NFLPA, the Players Association, and you're going to come to me and say, hey, we lost a lot of revenue last year, I will say, wait a minute, the Raiders made a decision that they didn't want fans. They didn't allow fans in, and they could have had 20,000. So how are you going to come to us and say you lost revenue if you turned revenue down? I think that's a battle that's going to happen at some point. I think at some point, they came to the agreement. They, redid certain aspects of the CBA in order to come into training camp this year and get this season in. But I would definitely say that there's going to be some questions asked about teams that said no fans were allowed if the state government would have allowed it. So we'll monitor what Nevada does if Governor Sisolak at some point does allow fans to come into stadiums and says, hey, pro sports can have 25% or 30% or 40% or whatever fans allowed, and the Raiders still have the policy of having no fans in the stadium. Then what does the league do? What does the NFLPA do? Where is that battle going to happen, and will it happen? I think it will, because if I was the players, I would say, well, we wanted to have, we didn't say no fans, you did, so you can't come to us and say you didn't make revenue. Like, you made that decision. I think that's a very fascinating part of all this, and will be something that is definitely worked out and discussed at some point down the road in the future. Thought I saw some questions on Twitter too, but I'm having trouble finding them right now, so I will try to gather those and maybe pass them on for next week, and we'll have more people in here throughout every single Tuesday and noon. Make sure you check it out. Vegas Nation, Handphone, check us out. Everything we do at ReviewJournal.com and Vegas Nation. We thank you guys. Thanks for questions. Keep them coming. He's just around the corner. Talk to you soon.
With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural season in Las Vegas, the fans want to be heard. The launch of Vegas Nation Fan Zone is their answer. That's right, Raiders fans can sound off on all things Raiders, from players to coaches to even the new Allegiant Stadium. Vegas Nation Fan Zone is accessible 24/7 and allows fans to generate and upload their own posts for lively interaction. Simply go to fanzone.vegasnation.com to sign up today. With so much excitement building around the Raiders and their inaugural